Mr. Zeldin, maybe you wouldn't be so cavalier about whether there was lead in their water. Maybe you would give a damn instead of coming in here and suggesting that any grant that takes lead out of the water must be waste, fraud, or abuse because you need
time has expired.
the money for a tax cut for rich people because you're totally beholden to the oil industry. You could give a rat's ass about how much cancer your agency causes.
Representative Adam Schiff didn't just bring facts to a debate. He brought a bulldozer. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're analyzing a masterclass in holding powerful people accountable on the spot. We're diving into a catastrophic 55% budget slash aimed at gutting the EP, a move Administrator Zeldin clearly wasn't ready to justify. This goes far beyond typical Washington bickering. It's a surgical teardown of a bureaucrat who is actively dismantling the very rules designed to keep citizens safe. Make sure you watch to the end. The exact second Zeldin gets trapped, tries to throw a petty insult, and catches Schiff's absolute fury regarding lead poisoned kids is destined for the history books. Drop a sub and let's roll the tape.
The gentleman from California, Mr. Schiff, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Zeldin, you've only been at the EPA for a few months, but in that time, you've done more to dismantle this agency than probably all of your predecessors put together. That may be a source of pride for you, but it is not for the American people.
Let's freeze it here to appreciate Schiff's opening move. He isn't asking polite questions, he's delivering a formal charge. Typically, when agency directors testify, they anticipate gentle inquiries or broad philosophical debates. Schiff skips the pleasantries. He immediately locks down the time frame, noting Zeldin has only been there a matter of months. That specific detail frames the entire showdown. Schiff is explicitly calling out a targeted, high-speed talk-down of the agency, rather than just normal administrative changes.
You've unlawfully terminated grants without justification. You've fired and pushed out some of the best scientists who inform EPA's decision-making. You refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated to the EPA by law. And you've launched a pro-polluter effort to delete dozens of environmental protections. On top of all this, you've launched an effort to overturn California's Clean Air Act waivers that improve the quality of air breathed by 40 million Californians and by millions more in other states who have adopted California's high standards. That effort, for which my colleagues have decided to eliminate the filibuster to achieve, is not exactly what anyone would call cooperative federalism.
Forget cheap gotcha tactics. Schiff is cementing cold, hard facts directly into the official record. Let's unpack this because major news outlets largely glossed over it. First, there's the refusal to deploy funds already approved by lawmakers. According to the Constitution, Congress controls the budget. The executive branch, which Zeldin serves, isn't legally allowed to just withhold environmental cash because their corporate backers object. Doing so breaks the Impoundment Control Act. Second is the push to strip California of its strict emissions rules. Zeldin isn't chasing efficiency here. He's actively trying to make 40 million people inhale more pollution, just to pad the profit margins of fossil fuel and auto giants. The foundational rule is simple. A government agency exists to safeguard the citizens, not to sabotage itself for the benefit of corporate lobbyists.
But it's your budget that's the ultimate proof of your priorities. You propose cutting America's environmental agency by 55%, meaning that in your view, and that of President Trump, more than half of the environmental efforts of the EPA, more than half of the efforts to make sure Americans have clean air and clean water are just a waste. They're just a waste.
Let's put that massive 55% reduction into perspective. Slashing the military budget by that much leaves the country entirely vulnerable. Cutting the FAA by 55% means airplanes are no longer safe. So, what is the result of carving out 55% of the EPA? Regulatory watchdogs lose their jobs, water quality checks stop, and major polluters operate without oversight. As Schiff points out, Zeldin's underlying rationale is that he's fine erasing these protections because he considers safeguarding human life to be a waste of resources. Pay attention to how Schiff seamlessly transitions from boring financial figures to the terrifying human toll.
When they drink a glass of water, they may not be able to see it, But this water that Americans drink is going to have more chemicals like PFAS, forever chemicals in their water. This will be your good work. I want to be very specific about the legacy you're going to leave if you're successful in eliminating half of our efforts to clean our water and our air. Your legacy will be more lung cancer. It'll be more bladder cancer. It'll be more head and neck cancer. It'll be more breast cancer. It'll be more leukemia and pancreatic cancer, more liver cancer, more skin cancer, more kidney cancer, more testicular cancer, more colorectal cancer, more rare cancers of innumerable varieties.
Schiff just laid out the literal body count of stripping away regulations. He brought up PFAS, widely known as forever chemicals. These synthetic compounds don't degrade in the environment or inside our bodies. Instead, they build up over time and trigger the exact horrific types of cancer Schiff just listed. Slashing the EPS funding in half isn't about trimming the fat. It's about bulldozing the final wall, protecting your tap water from toxic corporate runoff. Schiff is making Zeldin look directly at the lethal consequences of his agenda.
My kids are going to be breathing that air just like yours. My family's going to be drinking the water just like yours. We may not be able to pinpoint just who gets cancer because you've done away with half the budget of those looking out for our clean water and clean air. But it's going to be somebody's kids, it's going to be somebody's family. To put this in more specific terms, there are 22 grants frozen by the EPA focused on improving health and reducing pollution, many of which directly impact children. For example, one project in Santa Ana, California, provided funding to help detect and prevent lead poisoning in children. According to the census, about 10% of the population in Santa Ana are under the age of 9. With a population of about 310,000 people, that means that 31,000 children are at risk.
Here's how you hold the untouchable accountable. Take a massive, abstract issue and make it hyper-local. Zeldin can easily go on cable news and rebrand a 55% slash as saving taxpayer money. What he can't spin away is the fact that 31,000 kids in Santa Ana are facing lead exposure. Lead poisoning in youth leads to permanent brain trauma and permanent developmental issues. The administration actively halted money meant to keep those specific children safe. Schiff lays a flawless trap. What possible issue could you have with stopping kids from drinking lead? If Zeldin tries to defend it through policy, he confesses that cash matters more than children. If he refuses to answer, he admits guilt. Nah, watch how a bureaucrat reacts when backed into an inescapable corner.
Senator, who is the grant applicant?
This is to the city of Santa Ana.
You have the biggest,
And are
you have the
you-
biggest
are you-
state, so
and
we're
are
going to have to
you-
go through every single list of the grant.
Well,
By the way, with that wind up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
Oh, yeah.
Just observe Zeldin's physical cues here. He stumbles over his words, refuses to make eye contact, and tries to dodge the question by arguing California is simply too large to monitor. Then, the peak of hubris hits. He labels a sitting representative who is holding literal statistics about 31,000 endangered kids a fiction writer. Zeldin gives a little smirk, clearly believing he just delivered a clever soundbite. But he completely miscalculated the situation. Schiff refuses to yield an inch. He detonates, and honestly, the anger is 100% warranted.
Well,
By the way, with that wind up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
oh, yeah. Well, I understand your view that you can cut half of the agency and it won't affect people's health or their water, their air. That, to me, is a big fiction, Mr. Zeldin.
You
And
forgot about the fact of cleaning up
I have to
the
think,
LA
Mr. Zeldin,
wildfires
I think,
or
Mr. Zeldin,
president when I was
if
in San
your
Diego.
if your children were
With the
drinking
Tijuana
water,
River sewage crisis,
if your
apparently we're
children
going
were
out on our
drinking
own for
water
that.
in Santa Ana, Mr. Zeldin, maybe you wouldn't be so cavalier about whether there was lead in their water. Maybe you would give a damn instead of coming in here and suggesting that any grant that takes lead out of the water must be waste, fraud, or abuse because
The
you
gentleman's
need
time has
because
expired.
you
Who said
need
that? The whole
the
thing,
money for a
everything
tax
you
cut
said,
for rich people
your time. It's all
because
make-believe.
you're totally beholden to the oil industry.
The
This is
gentleman's
why-
time
You could give a rat's ass about how much
It's
cancer
because
your
people
agency
you're trying to
causes.
destroy.
Profanity like that is virtually non-existent in formal congressional settings. It entirely breaks the traditional rules of politeness. Yet, you know what a much bigger moral failure is? Forcing 31,000 kids to ingest lead just so billionaires can get a tax break. Schiff delivers the final, crushing blow, the brutal truth that the people making these decisions don't have to watch their own children drink toxic water. When the head of the EPA shrugs off child poisoning just to land a petty jibe, the illusion of acting in the public interest vanishes entirely. This is exactly why elites hate oversight. It was never about saving money. The reality is that exposure is the ultimate weapon against corruption. By calling out Zeldin's subservience to big oil, Schiff is fighting to reclaim the government's true purpose from a system that functions solely as a bodyguard for massive corporations. The Kortaki way is undeniable. True justice cannot survive behind closed doors. Cutting the agency by 55% and withholding lead prevention money shows that the current leadership is offloading environmental damage onto the public while securing profits for the top 1%. So, what are your thoughts? Is it acceptable for an EPA head to block clean water funds to help pay for elite tax cuts? Does this showdown make you trust our system more or less? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's hold these officials accountable. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.